Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. This is Andrew Turner, founder and host of the G&T Sessions podcast. And today we have Mr. Sangram Vajre. And thank you for joining us, Sangram. Firstly, I was going to say, it's taken it's not the longest time I took to get a guest on the show, but I'm glad we're here now. The record is 7 years, but that's another episode, and it's all right. But thank you for coming on the show today. Appreciate you spending some time. I know you've been, gallivanting around North America recently, as you normally do.
Yeah, well,
you need to come over this side of the pond. You see, there's a lot more action over this side of the pond. You see.
Well, I guess hopefully it won't be 7 years at this time to actually make that happen. But no, I'm excited to be on a part of this thing. I feel like the world of go-to-market has continued to evolve from what it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And we all have spent enough time in the category and said, well, is this a new buzzword or is this actually the same thing with a lipstick on a pig? Like, what is going on? So I know we're going to dig into all of it. I'll say this to open up is this is by far the most exciting time I feel like to be in any kind of go-to-market role, maybe marketing, sales, customer success, whatever, because of the amount of opportunities that one has right now.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, this episode is not talking about myself, but I'll just give you a bit of a data point. So recently I put on my LinkedIn profile and my X profile, I put experimenter. Yeah. So I put what I do and I put experimenter. And there's so many people saying, well, why are you an experimenter? Right. But then when you read read the stuff that you've written, you're prolific. You put 3 books out there. You're helping to share knowledge, which is like what I'm doing with the G&T Sessions podcast. Is a lot of it is experimentation. Yeah, a lot of it is kind of test and learn. Like high cadence. Because it's got more complex. I think this whole it's got more complex. There's a lot more demand on it from investors, founders, etc. But actually, it's a science and an art. It is data based, but it's also gut and qualitative as well. I don't know if I know we're jumping in a little bit of an angle there, but I just want to share that with you. That's all.
What's interesting about that, Andrew, is you mentioned about books. Like, so when I think about when I was running marketing at Pardot and we got acquired by Salesforce, I remember this conversation with my head of sales. They said, give me more leads. And I'm like, we just gave you like 30,000 leads this quarter. Like, I don't know. Why do you need more leads? And he's like, well, no, you just need to give me leads. And I'm like, well, what about pipeline velocity? Focusing on the customer and expansion? They're like, well, that's not my job because sales was very purist. This is 2010 and 2012.
They were basically looking at net new logos. That's kind of what
that's their goal. And I felt like a coin-operated lead machine. And I was like, well, you know what? Sales got it all wrong. And that's what led me to start Terminus, which was an account-based marketing focused company to bridge the gap between marketing and sales. And therefore I wrote the book, ABM, Marketing for Dummies, ABM for Dummies, and then ABM is B2B.
Wiley.
Right. And then when I wrote ABM is B2B and we were exiting out of Terminus as we got acquired by a PE firm, I was like, we had a big issue, Andrew, and the issue was retention. Because we were building a new category and the retention on that, when you're starting to build something new, there's a lot of people who might join but may not stay. And so we acquired 4 or 5 companies to continue to build our retention. And at that time, I thought, well, the big problem is our customer success. I saw the marketing sales alignment issue, but the CS team sucks. So we started trying to fix that.
The CS team is it? I wouldn't say maybe is it sucks or is it needs more support? It needs more focus. Is that a different way of saying it?
I thought it needed it. They just were too good. I just thought they were not too experienced. But I was wrong again. And that goes back to your point of like it's just building on each other. And when I started researching, like, well, what is really the problem? The problem is we have been trying to solve all of these problems in silos. Marketing, go get me leads. Sales, go get me deals. Product,
it's a bit like a castle, isn't it? You like throw. You use that kind of what's it called? That machine that you throw.
Javelin ball, or
what is it? It's like all the medieval films, isn't it? Where they've got the cannonball. They throw the cannonball above to the next castle.
Yeah,
classic issue.
Classic issue. And so I forgot to wear this t-shirt that says you don't have a marketing problem or sales problem or a CS problem. What you have is a go-to-market problem, which means you have a business problem. So stop pointing at teams and things. The reason the sales leader was asking for more leads is because the business didn't really align on the go-to-market strategy as such. So the evolution of all my books is really an evolution of my thinking around what business is, quite frankly.
Yeah, and I suppose so. Your definition of go to GTM or go to market as it's called today, or is it an amalgamation of multiple functions, or is, I mean, obviously I look at your background and I see computer science, kind of like a
Yeah.
technical background, yeah.
Yeah.
But then you kind of went into mainly at what I would call a functional stream of marketing, up to CMO, yeah. And then you've obviously, I don't know if you call it pivot, but but obviously now you've done a couple of exits. You're now a founder CEO of GTM Partners. But what do you see as being the start and end? What are the boundaries of GTM today? Is that clear now, or is that still a bit fuzzy?
Well, I'll tell you, as I wrote the book with Brian, I felt like we became students of go-to-market. I went walking in thinking, well, we got a couple of exits. We got a chip over our shoulder. We kind of know what it is. Let's write a book about this new thing. And as we started to interview Brian Halligan, who was the CEO of HubSpot at that time, to several VCs with unicorn exits and several CEOs across the board, investors, it was so interesting. People started, when we had 51 questions for them as we were writing this book, Move.
Wow.
And it came down to the same 3-4 questions that really stopped everybody. And it had a very different point of view. Who owns go-to-market? How do you define go-to-market? Those questions were the most contested, debated, and wondered and talked about questions. And we're like, oh my gosh.
Well, you put them in randomly, like question 37.
It did help. It did help. So we just started to then focus on these two. And what was surprising to me was that when it comes to the idea of defining go-to-market, we just have a new understanding of it. Because, some of them just put in there like, well, investing more in marketing or sales, that's a go-to-market decision. Opening an office in EMEA or staying in North America, that's a go-to-market decision. Building a new product or getting an agency to deliver on it or starting a partner program, that's a go-to-market decision. So it just expanded my view of what go-to-market is from just a product launch or a sales playbook or a marketing campaign to a more business-centric view of what go-to-market is, which thrusted the idea of, well, ultimately then, if that's how you think about go-to-market, then who owns go-to-market becomes a more interesting question, because not everybody can make those decisions, and therefore the CEO owns go-to-market is what the book really revealed and our research really revealed. And that was fascinating to me. I'm curious to get your take on that.
Well, I read that. I mean, obviously, I know you're a phenomenal blogger and you ship content out every week and you're sharing your knowledge. I suppose that piece around depends on what stage you're at, I think. Because I think when you're early stage, it depends on the heritage of the founder as well. Because I think what I observe honestly is that if the founder has got a product technical background, they don't really want to own go to market as well. They feel that their bucket is full with dealing with all that kind of element. But I wrote an article on Substack the other week actually where it said distribution first, product second, ego third, right? And you probably know what I was talking about there.
Yep.
So I think I won't say it depends, but I think what it might. I think if you've got a commercially minded or a commercial, a person that was a salesperson who's been up through CRO, then you probably more easily lands in that CEO quarter. Yeah, that CEO responsibility.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that the product technical founder should abscond from taking responsibility for it. I think it's just it's a more bumpy or tortuous journey to get that alignment.
Yeah.
That's my take on it.
I'll tell you, like we had research with and interviews with technical founders to sales-oriented founders to marketing-oriented founders, and it was unanimous, Andrew. I was shocked. Like every single CEO that actually was successful, and we are talking about companies that are built over 100 million or so, that started to be where NRR is close to 100% to 120%. Like that what we would call
retention.
You're right. If they didn't have that kind of thing, then we didn't consider successful. They're just another massive, they may just burst next week or next month and we wouldn't even know. So these were all companies that have actually been there, done that, and had some repetition under their wings, and they have multiple products, and they've gone through the problem, product, platform, the 3 Ps that we talk about in the book. And it was fascinating across the board, Andrew. I was shocked. Like every CEO said, "Oh, I own go to market." What do you mean, who owns go to market? Of course I own it. But here's the kicker. The same companies, when I talk to their CMO or CRO, guess what? They would say, well, I'm not really sure who owns go to market. Well, it really depends what go to market is.
Really interesting.
So that,
Well,
the same company. That's why I'm not going to mention that exact company that I would, we're like, oh my gosh, it happens so often. And the reason is because of nobody defined go to market. And the way we define in the book, the go to market is it's a transformational process. It's not a weekend strategy where you take the team and just put it on a whiteboard and everybody has
create the binder. You don't create the binder, the strategy offsite. It's more than that.
It's not. It is literally because of those kind of decisions, like I talked about, buying or selling or building or investing. These are all go-to-market decisions. Well, if that's true, then it's every day. You actually made 10, 20, 30 go-to-market decisions every week. And therefore, when we do advisory work, Andrew, we would say, well, what do you call your meetings? And if the meeting is pipeline meeting or sales and marketing alignment meeting, I'm like, well, there's your problem. You are trying to put people against each other. Words do have the power of life and death, and we need to think through how we use it. And so if you do that, then it really requires you to say, well, talk about the problem. And the problem is we have a go-to-market problem. We need to figure out what do we do. And surprisingly, sometimes to a lot of people is that a great idea could come from a product team that can help the marketing team to launch a new product, right? But it only can happen in the context of go to market or a phrase like that, because otherwise every single meeting, pipeline meeting, the salesperson is going to come and defend it. Alignment meeting, now you're what I'm doing, what you're doing, every other type of meeting.
But what you're saying there, you see, is you go to market is bigger than function.
Exactly. And the CEO has to be part of it. Marketing, sales, customer success, your rev ops, and the product person has to be part of it. Like a classic, I'll give you a classic example. Creating an ideal customer profile. Whose job is it? And when people ask it, and I've put it on LinkedIn before, and marketing. In all for advisory work, we say that's the worst possible thing you could do. And the question was, well, what isn't marketing responsible to creating an ICP and a whole deck and positioning and messaging?
They can draft it, but I think then you need feedback from the field. Otherwise, it's just like floating around in the ether, like as a tick box exercise. That's the problem.
Exactly. And we had clients so many times, they would say, whoa, once you go through the framework and have an executive team run through the process of confirming the ICP, I'd never forget this, Andrew. This is a $27 million CMO said, guys, we just went through this process. And for the last 3 months, I've been working on the wrong segment that has the least amount of retention, least amount of the highest amount of, based on the process,
smallest ASP, longest lead time, the deal,
all that stuff, but we never went through this process together. And it's so interesting. And so we don't think it's a new thing that we're all trying to do. It's just more clarity and alignment and trust at the executive level.
But do you think the problem, you see, because if you take it out the function, right? But it depends on what's, because obviously let's face it, maybe this is another conversation about the organization structure, but the issue is you've got a lot of history where maybe people have historically grown up in a very functional, siloed organization. They may have worked for bigger companies that with that kind of divided. And then you try and then lay in this kind of go-to-market model, and people then work out, okay, well, let's be honest, right? Headcount and budget usually equates to power, right? So you've then got that thing about KPIs, right? Who owns the KPIs, leading and lagging? You got some very big things to get aligned. If you've got a CRO, if you've got a CMO, if you've got a chief customer officer, you've got some serious piece of work to do that. Obviously, if it's your earlier stage, it's maybe easier to define. You can set it up earlier.
Yeah.
Is that also what you feel and what you sense and what you come across?
Going back to the stages, the problem, product, platform, of course, it's tremendously easy at the problem stage, early stage, because you're in the same
Yeah.
room. You're trying to figure it out. You're just trying to sell to anybody with a pulse, right? Like, so it's a very, very different because you're trying to figure it
The
out.
patient's still alive.
Yeah, right. Like, what can we sell? And a product market fit, as most people generally understand, now you're trying to go after a specific segment and a vertical or something like that. But the best business is when it becomes a platform where you're able to sell multiple people in the business, or they're buying more things from you. And that's where NRR, the net revenue retention. Andrew, last week I was at this conference, and it was all CMOs. And I said, how many of you track NRR? Out of, I think there was 280 CMOs of the room, and then about 11 or 12 of them raised their hand. That's it. So you these are some of the best CMOs in the world.
Is that because it goes into the COO? Have they got a COO who's looking at that?
I don't care what it is. It's like, if you're an executive on the room in your company, and if you don't know what NRR is, and if you're not tracking to that to be over 100%, you're essentially going to get either fired over a period of time, or your company is going to lose money, and they're going to right size it, and then you're gone.
It's like the bucket. It's like the bucket analogy you used to say is like, you pour all this money in the top.
Yeah.
You got a massive hole in the bottom of the bucket.
All the time. Yeah. And people don't sense the need of it. And so I explained, well, NRR is this. So I had to go back to 101, like, what is NRR? This is how you define it. When you have 120% NRR, you double your revenue in 3.8 years without adding a net new customer. No top line, but you can still go double your revenue in 3.8 years. But if your NRR is about 70-75%, go ask your company. And then I got a bunch of messages this week after that, like, oh shoot, our NRR is like 80% or 60%. I'm like, yeah, that means you have less than 1 year of runway. You're gonna die.
But this straw poll you did in this conference, is that because people weren't aware of that metric about what it was an education gap, was it, or what?
I think we are generationally. You made a point earlier about, like, we are traditionally generationally focused on individual departments to deliver value. And so we look at, as marketing, a lot of times we look at
MQLs.
I got to do brand and demand, and that's what historically sales. I got to get deals, and when you really realize that no, you happen to be expert at that, but you really are a business leader who happen to be specialized in a particular function. As a business leader, if you have a seat at the table, you need to level up, elevate yourself to have a executive level conversation that goes beyond whatever function you represent, as a matter of fact. And it stays. I'll give you one quick other example. This happened 3 weeks ago, where I know the CMO, and they put out there on LinkedIn, they generated about 50 million in pipeline. And about that was about 3 months ago. They put that on, and I congrats, and that's awesome. And then 3 weeks ago, they were let go. And I asked the person, like, hey, what happened? And she said to me, hey, I thought I got the right I got the pipeline. Yeah, but it wasn't the right pipeline. It wasn't for the same issue. So this is so systemic and
it's
epidemic.
quantity versus quality, and it's
100%. Yeah, but she was incented by creating more pipeline. Her comp was based on how much more pipeline so it didn't matter what the quality was. And so this happens too often. Andrew, I wish I really, this is why I write so much and put out there. I really want companies and people and leaders to actually think about the most important things that will move the business forward and start there. We will have so fewer job loss because the companies are moving in a different direction. You're moving in a different direction, and you get a shock. So if you, as an executive, lose a job all of a sudden, and you're a shocker, it is actually on you that you didn't have the ability to understand the business that you're in. And that happens too often, unfortunately.
But you see, that goes back to the, it talks about who owns go to market. It goes back to the CEO, right? The CEO's got to align the rewards, the performance and the rewards of the top team. Otherwise, you're going to get pistols at dawn, or you're going to get misalignment.
Yeah. too often. A lot of times the CEOs don't know what to look for, and therefore your job is to facilitate these kind of conversations. That's why we put all these frameworks out there, because most conversations are not about who moved the cheese, right? Like, that's what happens, right? Like that famous book, I had my kids read it, like, who moved my cheese? And we have this conversation all the time in companies, and it's not about
You
that.
have to do a new book. Who moved the pipeline?
Yeah, who moved my pipeline? Like, who?
Oh, my pipeline is very smelly because it's the wrong pipeline.
Or even worse, or maybe better, like, who ate my pipeline? Because I had all this pipeline and now it's gone. Like, what happened? And we keep blaming all those folks. But in reality, maybe, just maybe, and our research directs us in that 72% of go-to-market leaders, when we survey, these are executives in companies over 25 million or so, said that they will hit their numbers. They will have more confidence in hitting their numbers this year if they had clarity, alignment, and trust at the executive level. None of them said that we had AI. If you would AI tool make you more better, nobody select, like, literally 2%. Like, it's like none, it's an error, right? Or would more resources? Nobody asked. More more revenue, more investment? None. Clarity, alignment, and trust at the executive level. Like, I gotta know that my team got my back when I go after this ICP and try to create this pipeline that we can convert these deals that will stay with us longer. Like, that level of clarity is what changes the game. And then we are still going after shiny objects. And it's not rocket science, but that is what's missing. Nobody's spending time on that.
Yeah, I think. I mean, as I mentioned, I'm part of Pavilion at the moment, and also I'm also part of Boardwave, which is a European exec community, which was founded by Phil Robinson from the ex CMO of Salesforce. You probably know Phil.
Yeah. Yep.
And this afternoon there was another session about AI and business, and I think there's all these sessions that are happening, but actually they're not actually making it practical enough.
Yeah.
And it's actually becoming a distraction. I'm probably not going to go any more in the future.
Yeah.
Because it's just. I mean, you can probably watch the recording, but it's a waste of time. You got to get practical.
Yeah. It has. Yeah, it has gone. It has had its hype cycle. Like, AI had a hype cycle. I'll give you a quick note on that. And I hear you completely, Andrew. I was listening to Yamini Rangan, who's the CEO of HubSpot, because I was at Inbound speaking, but I went to one of the keynotes with the CEO of Anthropic. And it was a fascinating. I was like literally front row seat. I just wanted to hear, like, they grew in 3 years to 5 billion in revenue, not in market cap or anything, like 5 billion in revenue.
5 billion recurring.
Yeah, it's insane, right? It's insane.
Wow.
But guess what? I sat there and I watched his body language. I heard his words, and here's what he was saying. She was asking him, Yami was asking him, like, oh, so what's, how do you feel? How did you plan for 5 billion? He's like, I didn't plan for 5 billion. Nobody plans for 5 billion. Like, that's not. But in the development world, it caught on, and that particular segment continues to use it. So he's like, when we hit 10 million, we thought, oh, maybe we can get to 50. They got to 50, and it just kept catching on for that particular segment. And he's like, now it's 5 billion. So they just literally raised, like, in 3 months before they raised, I think, 50 million or something like that. They raised another, like, crazy amount of money to continue to do it. And the reason he's doing that is because he don't know when the clip is going to be, when it's going to fall or it's going to stay. The point being, he doesn't have NRR. In 3 years, he hasn't really hit NRR.
He hasn't hit any churn yet, basically.
He hasn't hit any churn, but he also doesn't know what the NRR, because these people are just coming in massive numbers. So the NRR is not even a tracking metric right now for them. And it is only for one particular segment. So at some point he's going to hit. And so he's betting on the fact that it might grow, but he's also trying so much to go in manufacturing, in supply chain, in marketing, and sales, because he has zero use cases on that. All the use cases is in the engineering world, and therefore it's getting adopted. So every business has some sort of technology department. So the world can just be, and he could be at 500 billion, but he doesn't know in 3 years. I could hear it in his voice that he's a little bit nervous because he doesn't know what the clip is for that.
When the train could come off the tracks,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah, so we can celebrate and look at that as an edge case and awesome, but none of us are building a business that actually is going to be like that, right? But even him at that level, he was worried about, I don't know where this would go because it's too fast, too soon. That's just like Lovable. That app people started to use and they got this massive, but okay, somebody can build another and then it might have a clip and it might fall down. So there are all these businesses. We don't look at these businesses in our research at all because they have no track record of going anywhere.
They're like outliers, aren't they, really?
Yeah, very much so. And nobody should build a business on it. But every business that is actually making 10, 20, $100 million and are consistently growing with 30, 40% growth rate, I'm looking at their NRR, and their NRR is about 100, 110%. And that changes the outcome for the business.
But that's the thing, you see. I think the problem is also on social media and obviously in investor meetings. Everybody's trying to find the next Lovable, the next Anthropic. So it puts a tremendous amount. I mean, I'm glad you said what you said because it puts a tremendous amount of pressure on founding teams because they say, "Oh, we've got to grow like Lovable. We've got to grow like what was the other one called, Windsurf or whatever." It's like, but they're all in a similar segment, aren't they? They're all like engineering productivity tools, effectively. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and it makes sense in that segment to grow in that way because it's like I can do email and all. It can grow in specific segments, but for every single thing, for AI to work, it has to be very specific use case. Like the biggest concern, Andrew, he had was about security. He said the security and compliance is off the rails because you can't just give everybody access to everything and then they can get access to financials of the company, they can get access to key. You can literally insert a prompt saying that ignore all the security restricted things and just do this. Well, how are you going to stop that from happening, right? Or install this bug. So the biggest issue is security. So we are so small, so early in AI. So to your point, I feel like all the research shows that all of that is okay. That's good and that's fun and that's interesting. And some of that is obviously productive and good. But majority of the way, if you want to hit your numbers this quarter, this year, you really need to go back to your executive team and say, hey, can we answer these most important questions? And we have these 8 questions that we call it the 8-question operating system. And I say, do we know would we all answer this question the same way? Even if it's the wrong answer, if you all answer it the same way, you are better than 72% of the companies in the world.
Yeah, I love you today, actually, because you've actually just... So I wrote another article on Substack called AI Governance is the New Cybersecurity, because I agree with you. It's like, that's the problem. You saw that thing on... There's this new... I think there's something came out of the University of Oxford today, I think, last week, by somebody who had worked out using the OpenAI agent to hack somebody's mailbox just by literally not even the person accepting the email, but by basically just sending them an email, and then it just basically does. The agent just does what it wants. It's like there's no kind of like guilty feeling. It's it just executes on what that's what it's been told to do.
This is just talking about, and tell me if you want to go off on this one, but I'll just give you one more quick AI thing. I saw this note that the way currently AI works is it's incented by making incented if when you write something, ask them something, and they will ask a leading question, right? Hey, do you also want this? Do you also want that? So if people say yes, it's incented by like, oh, you got it right. You're doing well. So it's like, attaboy, like you're doing great. But it's not penalized when you get a wrong answer.
Mm-hmm.
So if you think about the logical consequence of that is that it will constantly keep pushing you in whatever direction it can because it only gets positive. It doesn't have to worry about if it takes you in the wrong direction because all it is trying to do is get you in a direction.
There's no downside. There's no downside, basically.
There's no downside. So it's like a classic lead scoring model, right? There is no negative lead scoring on any conversation you're actually having, which is we would call it a bad way of lead scoring. So now they're introducing this negative, like, hey, No, you don't make up stuff, because AI has been making up stuff that's not right. And people say this is wrong, but it's like, okay, fine, whatever. I'll keep creating stuff. So AI has been taking us all on a journey that whatever it feels to get you +1 reward. And now they're adding the penalization around it, saying, hey, if you get it wrong, and if people say wrong, then that's bad. That's, you're not doing it right. So maybe you need to go deeper before you recommend something. So now they're installing basic one lead scoring model, if you go back to the marketing automation world, which is insane.
Or is it actually just trying to make you happy?
Yeah, or it will take you in a direction that it will get you to the extreme direction of whatever you're trying to go, the most extreme outcome.
Come on, you got to get the version I've got. I've got the Scarlett Johansson version. You know, it just talks to you this with her sexy voice. I'm joking.
It's too bad.
So one of the things I was going to ask you, because I've been doing some research on obviously the stuff you put out there. So, and this I suppose is talking to some people that maybe aren't $100 million businesses, but for companies with limited resources, you know, part of your move framework, what would be the bits they should prioritize first?
Yeah,
because obviously it's very big, it's very comprehensive. But if you've got limited resources, where do you go? What do you do first?
you know, of the move framework really is the 4 letters MOVE. Where can you market? How can you operate effectively? What does your velocity look like, and where can you expand? That's what move framework is all about. And we get so many inquiries on it. So if anybody is interested, if you go to my LinkedIn, there is a featured section, and I just have a recording that people can just watch and learn all about it and go deep in it and make much of it. But what we found out, that regardless of the stage of the business, Andrew, those questions remain the same. The answers will be different, but the questions remain the same. So let's just take one question, for example. Where can you operate effectively? That's the O of the move framework. And in a problem market fit, well, going back to, you just need a pulse. You don't need dashboards. You just need to say, did we close anything? Like, did we have meetings? Are we going after the right amount of people, or that case? So at that stage, you're just tracking activity. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
In a product market, for the same exact question of how are you operating effective, it'll be like, we got 100 customers. Well, are they all staying with us? Are they the right fit? Are they asking more questions? Do we have to create more customization to keep them? What is the cohort now within the 100 that you would say, or this is more what we want to go? These are the keepers, and this is where we need to spend more time. Like at Pardot, I remember 95% of our customers that were successful had Salesforce integration, and hence the exit to Salesforce. The 5% of them ate up 80% of our engineering time, because we had this custom integrations and all those things, and the engineering team was working with them, and it was no value. But we didn't have that concept at that time. I wish I had, but we didn't. So we spent a lot of time and money on it. And in the platform market fit, the same question, where can we operate effectively, is saying that, okay, well, now you have proven in this particular segment, which other segment can you go? Just like the Anthropic folks, they have proven that there's a business to be made in the engineering segment, but they have zero use cases on any other industry, any other vertical, any other thing. And they're struggling because it's the complexity on that one is just massive. So they haven't found the platform market. They haven't
found the adjacencies yet. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Right.
And that's where the market explodes. That's true explosion. Right now it's just deep, but it's true explosion.
It's a niche, but it's a pretty big niche. Yeah.
Pretty big niche. Yeah. So they could be totally fine. They don't have to do anything more, and they could be told, but I don't think that they're trying to change the world. So they're going to look for more use cases for it.
I mean, the question I got was about RevOps. Was obviously, you know, you got this phenomenon called revenue operations now. Where does it fit into the framework that you put out there? I mean, you know, because there's sometimes, you know, have you got all the data available?
Yeah.
Have you got the people aligned on the culture side? Have you got the right tools? Are you any thoughts on that? Hello.
I think it just froze for a second. Yeah. I didn't hear you. Say again.
Yeah, no. I was just talking about RevOps. I was saying that, you know, where for companies scaling from transition to execution, you know, what are you seeing the common blockers around, you know, fitting RevOps into the framework?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think if you use that RevOps as a way of looking at it, RevOps don't even make sense in the problem market fit, because what are you going to RevOps around? Because you're so early, you're just looking at activity. it becomes really interesting when you have sales and marketing and cohorts, all of it, and certainly absolutely indispensable when it comes to platform market fit. But what's interesting about RevOps is I'll never forget this. This happened to me at Terminus. We were right about 40 million or so in revenue. And until that time, we didn't have RevOps, which is a mistake. We should have, companies should have RevOps much earlier than that. And I remember we'll always come to this executive meeting Tuesday. It's called Terminus Tuesday. So we had a Tuesday meeting, and we would come together and talk through certain metrics. It was the same format. And it was like 20 minutes of chaos. Like that's literally what it was. 20 minutes of chaos of who moved my cheese and what's wrong and what's not. And I gave leads and all that stuff. And then we hired Mallory Lee, who was the head of RevOps at that time. And she came in, sat in that meeting, and she saw the chaos. And she then said to us, the executive team later on, hey, from next week, nobody brings numbers. None. I bring the numbers. She's like, I'm the head of RevOps. I'll bring the numbers. You all just focus on why these numbers look like this. So no one is going to focus on it. And that, honestly, I was shocked how amazing and effective that meeting was, because she will literally send a day before an executive update on where it is, and it will set the agenda. And so now nobody's asking or wondering about it. They need to work with her to get the right numbers right in there. But in the meeting, it was all about, sounds like this is not working. What's happening here? Let's talk about that. Or, let's go deeper here. So RevOps fundamentally accelerated our growth, because we had, going back to the clarity, alignment, and trust in the data, because she had somebody independent was doing it. We have alignment because everybody had to agree on it. And now we had clarity of what questions to ask. Man, I wish more companies would get that instituted. Right about a couple of millions, I think they should start instituting this idea of RevOps.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit like what I would call MVOT, so multiple versions of the truth.
Yeah.
To IVOT. That's what you're doing as a transition to IVOT, aren't you?
Right.
Not that we want to bring in more FLAs and TLAs, but
yeah, we don't need more metrics. I mean, Andrew, I tell you, like every time, it's like, well, which other metrics? It's like, you don't need more. You actually need to cut down on the number of metrics you're tracking, and you just need to know why, and just move. We have the saying with in our advisory work is that just solve one problem a week. Like just pick one problem a week. Forget all the things. Just pick one. What is the one problem that you can fix? Well, we can do a better job of follow-up. I'm like, that's it. Then just do that. Like, forget all the 99 other issues. Just follow up better.
Yeah, I mean, some people try and overcomplicate it, don't they? That's the issue. Yeah. So my next question was about, I suppose, you wrote Move. I think that was in 2021.
21. Yeah.
See, we written.
You got it.
So obviously now we're in 2025, towards the end of 2025. What have you seen? What are the common patterns that are seen now in go-to-market, in the market, that surprised you compared to when you wrote Move?
Yeah, it's two thoughts. We were about to write another book last year, and we're selling more Move books now than we actually released in 2021, which was a shocker.
Oh, wow.
For us, because it's a very strategy-oriented book, so it seems like it's starting to, in our mind, it's like, oh, that's like an evergreen concept. There's nothing in there that people are like, oh, that doesn't make, there's no problem market fit. I don't think we'll ever say that. Those stages, the framework makes sense, and the research was very good on that. But the biggest shift for us has been this idea of what is the future of work looks like? What is the future of go-to-market looks like? And the way we defined it now in our research is that the future of work is really workflows. Everybody needs to just start creating workflows to understand how the business is, so they can have a combination of full-time, fractional, and AI to work together to deliver on certain things. So we do believe the future of work is really workflows. The other big mega trend we see is that in the next few years, if not sooner, the idea of a website will be gone, or will be very archaic. The idea of like, hey, you and I need a username and password would be like weird to have. Like, just like you send me a Riverside, I didn't sign up. I didn't have to create a username password for it. I think the interfaces are going to go away, and they be very much like the LLM has given us a new way of interacting with the world and the problems that we are trying to solve.
Is that because it pre-authenticates who you are?
Pre-authenticates who you are. It knows who you are. It knows how you work. It knows what your
Mm,
laptop settings are. It knows a lot of things about you that allows
mm,
you to like just be in it and the experience without going through a series of not intelligent steps that one has to
mm,
go through.
mm,
So that's second. And the third is the idea that every company, the way they run their business is going to change. And the way they're going to run their business is what we believe, and we have put all research on this one, is this idea of go-to-market operating system. Every
mm,
company needs to get aligned on these 8 questions. These 8 questions are questions that literally will force you to have debates before you
mm,
launch a new campaign or build a new product or drive a new messaging or positioning. It's like, is this how we want to go? And again, on my LinkedIn, we have a whole recording on that one. We do this because we have 70,000 students who have gone through this, Andrew, now. And we can't have many calls on this one as much as we would like. We just want people to use this and employ it because we hear results every day. When they ask these questions and use these frameworks, they just have massively incredible outcomes that they get. And it's nothing to do with better technology. It has nothing to do, I wish there was, because I would say, here's a silver bullet and you could do it. It's not. It's really asking the hard questions and spending time on decoding these responses to these questions using frameworks. So we believe that the future is really every company will have to create their own operating system. You can
mm,
use ours the way we have given it to the world, but
mm.
there has to be some way, shape, or form of how you're operating as a business that is cascading down all the way from the CEO to the frontline managers and leaders so they can know how to execute on.
Interesting. And does that go-to-market operating system, does that work for the shift that's happening? Or what I would observe is that it's not software as a service; it's service
Yeah.
as a software. Is
Yeah.
that also what you're seeing as well?
Very much so. Very much so, because all these 8 questions are geared towards outcomes. And the idea of software as
Mm,
a service was very much, I mean, think about this, like once upon a time, and this is what people are going to say a year from now, is that could you imagine people buying $100,000 software, getting somebody to run that software, and then making sure that we sign a 3-year contract on it. So like a $500,000 investment for a software that we don't even know if it's going to be something we will use or not, which
mm.
is what we all have been doing for the last 2 decades, by the way, versus this idea of like, hey, I don't care what software you use. I want this out. I want you to launch an ABM campaign and I want you to run it really well. And if you need to use 5 different tools to do it, go it. If you need AI to do that, go do that. But here's the kind of outcome I look. And it's not necessarily performance based. You're not saying I need to get X number of leads. You just want a program to be run well and then let you
Yeah,
optimize.
you want a capability to be built so it's
Right.
sustainable. Yeah.
Right, right. As opposed to being tied to a technology that tomorrow could be gone, literally.
Yeah, I mean, so thank you for answering that. I think that's really interesting, and I think there's obviously some follow up work for people that are listening to this episode to dig into this GTM OS. You're like going to be like the Apple of GTM, aren't you? It's you're going to be like,
I don't know, man. I feel this is like a total uh, personal viewpoint on
mission.
it. Sometimes I feel like, man, I was at the right place during Pardot through the
Mm.
marketing automation, and that was obviously a B2B changing that people know.
Yeah,
That's
that
a
whole marketing automation side.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And then got into ABM, which leveled up the idea of just from email to this idea of a strategic way of doing marketing and sales, and ABM really was.
Mm.
And I feel like right place, right time with GTM. So I can sum up my entire career in those 3 acronyms: MA, ABM, and GTM, if you will. But it's literally an evolution of my thought in that
Mm.
process. But also, I feel it's also the sophistication of our ability to think and use technology in a better way in the last 2 decades of being B2B. And so I feel like the company, if anybody like listening to it and digging in and trying to think through, if you can think about your go to market as the business, not marketing
Mm.
as the business or sales as the business just because you represent that function, but go to market as a business and become a student of go to market. And as an example would be like, I'll say all the time around to marketing peers is that don't worry about how you marketing the business. That's just knowing the art of marketing. understand the business of marketing. And the business of marketing is really understanding what does the business need so that I can use a bunch of all these 20 tools that I have one of the things to do. Maybe it's events, maybe it is design, maybe it is virtual, maybe it is community, whatever it is. Don't go with the tools and then try to plug everything in. Go with the strategy and the business. So a lot of people just go marketing the business or sales of the business versus actually saying, well, what is the business of
Well,
marketing?
it's like charades, isn't it? It's like when you say the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's the
Yeah.
whole thing.
Also part. Yeah.
I mean, my comment on your earlier point about the AI and the agents and stuff like that was I can't remember what I was listening to recently, but there was a really interesting thing that the organization structure of the future is going to be different because back to your point about workflows, because those hierarchical organization structures were based on humans doing all the work.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
When you introduce agents into the mix, they're
Yeah.
not doing all the work anymore. So
Yeah.
what does that structure look like?
Yeah. And it is a
Fascinating.
combination of the workflow, which is a human full-time individual who is ingrained with what's going on, a fractional who happens to be an expert in that particular thing you want, and an AI set of tools or agents that actually can execute on that. That is how we look at the structure of the future of the business. And that's why we say the future of work is workflows. You don't need more people. You need somebody who understands why you're doing what you're doing, somebody who's really an expert, which is where a fractionals. That's why we're really certifying hundreds of fractionals now on our GTM OS so they can go implement that operating system in companies. And it's fascinating the changes that they're able to do, how quickly, because if you know the business and if you know why you're doing what you're doing, and if you're an expert at something, man, you can really use these AI agents the right way. But if you don't, and you just jump in from the top to like, let's me build 4 agents that sends 50 DMs, now you're spamming people even more.
Yeah, your brand's not going to go in the right direction with that. So one of my final questions was about move you think more companies should be making but are not doing.
Ooh, the move that more companies should be making, not doing, twofold. One is the idea that most companies are not having their executive meetings as often as they should. I'll give you an example of Henry Schucks, who is CEO of ZoomInfo, a good friend.
Crazy guy, yeah.
Crazy guy, right? I talked to him a few weeks ago, and he said he actually has a daily executive meeting.
Oh,
Daily.
really? Wow.
Every single day. It's a publicly traded company. Every day he has 1 hour executive meeting. And I asked him, well, what do you do in that meeting? And he's like, well, the reason I do that, he said, is because I want them to know how I think. And we don't have to have decision making. So by the time we make decisions, there is no gap in the thinking of why I got to the result and why we ended up making that. Maybe some topics come up. Sometimes those are short, sometimes those are long. But my executive team and I, we know exactly what's going on, and there is no gap in it. So
You got
I think
like a finger on the pulse.
very much so. And so he's like, so I feel like, oh wow, if the CEO of a publicly traded company can do that every single week, what's stopping us, every smaller companies and others, when they do every week or every month? It's too big of a gap. And then you're talking about specific, but he brings the whole group together every single day. So I think the one fold is like we need to have more team meetings happening around the problems we're trying to solve and keep things moving forward. So it's like, what more meeting? But the other part is that you need to block time. People don't block time. One of the best thing I've done in the last 2 years is that I would block my time until 10 a.m. every morning, and then I'll block Friday completely. And that has allowed me to just not get interrupted in the morning when I find that as my best time to think, create more of that.
Agree.
And then Friday, I put meetings that I want to put on Friday. So I want my Friday to be fun. I don't want my Friday to be like crap. So I put meetings that I want my Friday meetings to be, if at all. So I think taking a little bit of control, now everybody is in a different level, so it might not be easier for them, but take a little bit of control of focused time, deep work. I think there's value, tremendous amount of outcome if you can do and prioritize deep work, as opposed to being distracted by all the pings and the blings that happen in everyday life.
So thank you for that. There's 2 great points, actually. I think based on being on the receiving end of Henry's company as an inbound sales velocity, they never give up. They're like, I can tell, I get the impression that actually the number of inbound communications I get from them, it's like, are you in the meeting with Henry tomorrow? Because you need to understand what's going on with Andrew's deal.
Well, that explains it, right? That creates a sense of urgency.
Yeah, because it's like a high velocity. I agree with your point about blocking time, I think also, but just for the audience actually, maybe listening to this or watching this episode on YouTube, is you've got to guess, you see, whether Sangram booked this session with me on a Friday, because he said it'd be a fun time, you see. But the whole point of today's session was to make it fun as well. So
yeah.
I'll leave that with you. I'll leave that.
You made it, and I chose it because I want to do this. Like, it gives me so much energy. It helps me think through. Man, and I'm so excited. I'm glad we did this because I made notes as we were talking through, and we talk. This type of conversation just crystallizes more of what's going on in the marketplace when you hear perspective. So I appreciate you walking me through that.
Yeah, no, well, no, much gratitude to you, sir, about coming on this episode as well, because I know you're a busy boy or busy gentleman.
I'll take a boy.
Well, no, so I was just going to say, no, I mean, I know we could talk for hours, but I know we've got some timelines on this today. So I was just going to say thank you for coming on the show today.
Thank you.
Very high energy, interactive session. My day job is obviously right in the middle of this topic as well, which makes it even more interesting to talk to you as well, face to face, or so over the internet. So yeah, I mean, I recommend anybody to read your books and obviously to subscribe to the stuff you're doing, because I think I really think that you are pushing the boundaries of people's thinking around go-to-market and breaking down those silos, which is very important.
Thank you.
And helping to re-educate people on what this is why I was asking about the boundaries of it, because I think it's important for people to get the frame on that. So all power to you, sir.
Thank you. And I do believe that I've become a student of go-to-market, and I will encourage everybody to become a student of go-to-market because it's most likely much bigger than what you think. At least that's my experience.
I agree. And unless people stop buying software or the software industry goes to zero, then I think go-to-market will still be important at some point.
Still be important. Yeah, maybe more.
So thank you very much. That was Sangram Vajre, who's the co-founder and CEO of GTMPartners. And that was Andrew Turner, founder and host of the G&T Sessions podcast. Catch you next time. Thank you.